Good afternoon, everyone. It is Saturday, July the 21st, after 2 p.m. and today I'm hiking the upper Dutchmans Creek Loop in Uwharrie National Forest, North Carolina. This is my first visit to the area in over a year. In March of 2017, I hiked 2 hikes within a week, and I haven't visited since. But the weather forecast for the whole southeast is pretty bad starting this weekend and all next week. Every location in the mountains that I checked had a 70 to 80% chance of thunderstorms. So instead of chancing a very miserable wet hike, I decided to sleep in and stay a little bit closer to home. The National Forest is about an hour and 20 to an hour 45 away from my house, depending where I want to go. So it's really good for a shorter day and an easier day of hiking. Uwharrie National Forest is the smallest of the 4 national forests in North Carolina, around 51,000 acres, and is located between the Charlotte and Triad metropolitan areas and east of I-85 and west of I-73. The National Forest encompasses most of the Uwharrie Mountains, which are known as the oldest mountain range in North America and one of the oldest in the world. Millions of years ago, these peaks were over 20,000 feet high, but today they're nothing but hills. The National Forest, the elevations generally range from 500 to 1,000 feet. Outside of the National Forest to the north, there are some peaks that are over 1,100 feet, and that's the highest you're going to get in this region. It's one of the reasons I skip over this place, because those sort of elevations are not very conducive to long distance views. And also, I've found that the creeks and rivers are not super interesting, at least the ones that are located close to the trails. But it's about time I come back and visit, and this is a loop that I've been eyeing for a while. The Dutchmans Creek Trail generally parallels the southern portion of the Uwharrie Trail from Troy, North Carolina to the Yates Place Campground, where I started at. And it kind of forms a large figure 8 with the Uwharrie Trail. So that means you can do 2 separate loops, or one big loop that is around 22 miles, which is a perfect weekend for backpacking. The upper loop is around 9 miles in length and is a little bit more strenuous than the lower Dutchmans Creek Loop, which is around 11.5 miles. I think judging by the topo, I'm going to have an elevation gain of over 1,800 feet today in just 9 miles, which is impressive for anywhere in the Uwharrie Mountains in general. Currently, I'm heading south on the Uwharrie Trail. I haven't come across the split with the Dutchmans Creek Trail. I think I'm going to continue on the Uwharrie Trail to the figure 8 cross point and then take the Dutchmans Creek Trail back to my car. I'm still heading south on the Uwharrie Trail. I thought I would whip out my phone again, give you an idea of the topography and forest of the Uwharrie Mountains. In general, you're going to encounter gently sloped hills with some exceptions. These are very similar to the hills around Durham in Eno River State Park, in that the elevations are 700, 800 feet for most of them. But I think these are a little bit steeper because of their former height and their erosion. I've never encountered steep gradients in Eno River State Park like I do here. I'd say for the most part, the forests are made up of pine and hardwoods, and it seems almost everything was logged decades and a century ago. You'll rarely encounter a big tree here. Lots of tall, skinny ones, but nothing that has a wide diameter. The Uwharrie National Recreation Trail begins west of Troy at the Wood Run Trailhead, which is a popular mountain biking area also. And it runs north-south, bisecting the National Forest. It's around 27, 28 miles in length right now. It ends just north of King Mountain, which I hiked last year. And in the future, it's going to be completed all the way to the Burkhead Mountains Wilderness, making it a 40 to 45 mile through hike that would be great for 2 to 4 day backpacking trips. It's something that I'm looking forward to having, kind of a Piedmont long distance trail separate from the Mountains to Sea Trail, which is really the only long distance trek you can do outside of the North Carolina mountains. And this will just give you something if you want to test some of your gear before getting into the difficult terrain. That's a pretty big tree. I mean, still not old, maybe a second growth type tree. But I said there were some tall, skinny trees in this area. This is definitely one of them. Definitely over 80 feet high, minimum. Really nice campsite where the Uwharrie Trail crosses Dutchmans Creek. Perfectly flat and open. This would be a great backcountry camping area. But I definitely have to point out that Dutchmans Creek at this point is completely dried up, which is surprising. I have read and seen on Facebook that the upper elevations of these creeks in this area almost dry up in the summer. And I guess this prominently named creek is no exception. We are not far from the origin of the creek, around 600 feet in elevation. But if you are camping here, it's likely you won't be able to get any water. I'm going to cross this creek again around 400 feet in elevation, so I will show you that, and we'll see if it has any water by then. Well, I'm at this nice campsite. Thought I'd take a little break and show you what map is available for this area. This is the Uwharrie National Forest map by the USDA and the Forest Service. In general, I prefer these maps over National Geographic maps, but I think this is the worst map available in North Carolina, created by the Forest Service. And I'll show you why when I flip it open. This map is a 1 in 63,360 scale and shows almost the entire national forest and the surrounding regions, which you would think would be helpful because 63,000 is perfectly fine for most navigation. You'll find most National Geographic maps a 70,000 or 75,000 scale, and quite a few USDA National Forest maps around 63,000. However, this map does not show all of the trails that you will find on the PDFs available on the National Forest website. And the trails that are shown on this map are in a light gray dotted line in general, which is almost useless. You can barely see them, and they blend into the terrain, and the labels for these trails are only with faint red. It makes no sense to me why they couldn't have been red, blue, orange, yellow, anything else but light gray, because it blends into the color scheme, and all of the bike trails and the four-wheel drive trails and the forest roads are of a similar color. So I'll try to point out where I am. I started at the Yates Place Campground, and I connected to the dotted red line, which is the Uwharrie Trail, and I am at this creek crossing, and I'll continue west on the trail and eventually pick up the Dutchmans Creek Trail, which is very hard to see on this map. It is, let's see, there's 98. It's going to head north and curve around. But there are also a lot of trails that you can't see in between Yates Place and the Wood Run Trailhead. There are a ton of mountain biking trails that are hard to pick out in this area. So I would not recommend planning a trip using this. But this map does give me the opportunity to point out the three main areas of hiking in the National Forest. There's the southern portion between Wood Run and Yates Place. Then there are the trails near the Baden Lake boat access. There are a lot of trails in there. And then far north is the Birkhead Mountains Wilderness. The Uwharrie Trail starts at Wood Run, meanders this way north, centrally bisecting the National Forest, and ends somewhere around here, and will eventually connect to the Birkhead Mountain Trail in the wilderness. The peaks in the area I'm hiking in the south are only 600 to 800 feet high in general. The tallest peaks in the Uwharrie Mountains, or the Uwharrie National Forest, I should clarify, are in the north central spine. The Uwharrie Trail generally crosses them or bypasses them. It starts around this trailhead sign, continues north to the wilderness. Those peaks are between 900 and 1,000 feet, including Dark Mountain, Little Long and Long Mountains, King Mountain, Cooler's Knob Mountain, and Cedar Rock Mountain in the wilderness. But the two tallest peaks in the Uwharrie region are to the northwest, High Rock Mountain, and the northeast. That blue area actually might be, or that purple area might be where Shepherd Mountain is, that is close to Ashboro. Both of those peaks I just mentioned are over 1,100 feet. I should also point out that west across the PD River is Morrow Mountain State Park. That also has some good hiking trails, and I would say of all the peaks in the Uwharrie Mountains, these are the steepest. The elevation gain or change going up to Morrow Mountain or Sugarloaf Mountain is around 400 to 500 feet in a half mile, which is just as steep as any peak, as any trail in the mountains we have. But the big difference is you're only hiking up 400 or 500 feet, and that's it. You get it over very quickly. I'm now heading north on the Dutchmans Creek Trail. You may see some yellow blazes in the video. The Uwharrie Trail is blazed white. I think I have around 5 miles left. I'm almost to the halfway point of the loop, which means I probably have 2 to 2.5 hours of hiking remaining. I think this section has at least one steep climb up to the summit of Lick Mountain. Otherwise, I don't know what to expect other than sort of the same topography. Maybe some of these creeks I'm going to cross are going to have some water in them and look better than a dry stream bed. So I'm going to go ahead and apologize for the length of this video. It is way too long, much longer than this hike warrants. I've been doing a lot of explainer because I rarely visit the Uwharrie Mountains, so I thought I would break out the nerdiness and talk about everything I could in the intro and in the map section. I've also been complaining a lot, and so you ready for another big gripe? As I said earlier, the only map available for the whole National Forest was that USDA map. There is no National Geographic map for this area. There is another map from the USDA for the Birkhead Mountains Wilderness, but obviously that doesn't apply to where I'm hiking. However, on the National Forest page, they do have multiple PDF maps that are in color and more depth, have current hiking trails, biking trails, four-wheel drive trails that are labeled a lot better. And they also have future routes. I don't have a color printer, so I didn't print those out or save them to my phone. But I thought maybe I could stop into the ranger station today and see if they have any for free or on sale. Lo and behold, the Uwharrie Ranger Station in Troy, the only one for Uwharrie National Forest, is not open on the weekends, which is crazy to me. Just think about it. National Park, state parks, Pisgah and Nantahala National Forest, those visitor centers are open 7 days a week, basically, all summer. And I think they're usually open on at least Saturdays in the winter. And this one's only open Monday through Friday. I mean, when do they think people are coming to hike and bike in this area? Not in the middle of the week. You get way more traffic in the weekend during the summer. So I'm talking to you, Uwharrie Rangers. Take Monday and Tuesday off, or Monday and Wednesday off, or Tuesday and Thursday off, and open on the weekends so people can come talk to you guys and see what's in your store. All right, that's my last gripe, I think. I am climbing out of the Little Island Creek drainage, and this might be the steepest section of the entire loop. It's climbing straight up this boulder-strewn hill. Doesn't feel out of place from the mountains. Got arrows and blazes painted right on rocks here. Pretty cool. This is wildly different from the rest of the hike so far. Very interesting. I can't even remember any of my other hikes in the Uwharrie Mountains being as rocky as this. It is pretty crazy. And steep. Definitely steep. The ascent and descent of Lick Mountain was pretty darn steep both ways. Difficult climb either direction. Took the wind out of me. Now I'm at the crossing of Dutchmans Creek, about 1.5 miles, 2 miles downstream of the crossing a couple hours earlier. And there is some water now, but it's very low, very pitiful. Surprising how little water there is in this seemingly wide stream bed. Probably about 15 feet wide at least. It looked like there was more water in the tiny Little Island Creek earlier. So no matter what, you got a plan to scoop this water out and filter it. Otherwise, it'd be disgusting. It is just past 6 o'clock, and I'm about to finish the hike. I'm on the short half-mile Yates Place connector from the Uwharrie Trail, and I have less than a quarter mile to go to my car. In total, I've been out in the trail about 4 hours and 15 minutes, and my track is saying 9.7 miles at the moment, and I thought it was going to be around 9 miles, so almost a mile longer than I expected, but I still kept a good pace despite all of my stops for redoing bad video takes. You don't even know how many takes I did for my intro segment. It was terrible. Anyways, this is a good solid loop in the Piedmont. Nothing special, especially in the summer where the water's kind of dried up and you get no winter views through the trees. I think it'd be a much more pleasant hike in the winter. I definitely have to get back here for the lower Dutchmans Creek loop, probably in December or January, just to finish this figure 8 circuit. But if you're in the area, this is a good one to check out. It's more difficult than I expected. Mainly the Dutchmans Creek Trail, which was much more difficult than the section of the Uwharrie Trail that I was on. The up and downs were steep. I think that a few of those were 800 to 1,000 feet per mile. over 3 sections. It was tough, but the Dutchmans Creek Trail was more scenic than the other one. So usually I tell you that I'm going to a brewery afterwards, and I don't know which one because I always have a lot of options, but today I do. I'm going to stop by Four Saints Brewing Company in Asheboro, North Carolina. It's a relatively new brewery. I've only had one of their beers before in Chapel Hill, and I didn't really like it, but their selection seems really good online. So that's just a little tip, because some people like to ask me what breweries I check out afterwards. And I'm 100% sure which one I'm going to today. So hopefully next weekend I will be back in the real mountains, where it's a little bit cooler and more scenic.